What if I told you that two young girls, with some paper cutouts and a basic camera, fooled the entire world, and not just anyone, but the very man who created the master of logic, Sherlock Holmes? This is the true story of the Cottingley Fairies, a prank that started as a way to avoid getting in trouble and ended up as a global sensation. It's a tale of childhood innocence, wishful thinking, and a world so broken by war, it was desperate to believe in a little bit of magic. Let's set the scene. It's the summer of 1917 inches, the small village of Cottingley, England. The Great War has cast a shadow over everything. But for 9-year-old Frances Griffiths and her 16-year-old cousin Elsie Wright, their world is still the wooded glen behind Elsie's house. Their favorite playground was a stream called Cottingley Beck. The problem was, they always came home with muddy shoes and wet clothes, and their mothers were getting tired of it. When asked why on earth they spent so much time by the stream, Frances had a simple, exasperated answer. She went there to see the fairies. Unsurprisingly, her mother didn't believe her. So, the girls hatched a plan not to fool the world, but just to get their parents off their backs. Luckily, Elsie's father, Arthur, was a keen amateur photographer with his own darkroom. Elsie herself was a gifted artist who'd been to art school and worked at a photographer's studio, so she knew her way around images. One day, the girls borrowed Arthur's camera, a bulky Midge quarter plate. Elsie then found a children's book, Princess Mary's gift book, and carefully copied the drawings of dancing fairies onto cardboard. She added wings, cut them out, and armed with their paper figures and a few hatpins, they headed for the stream. They propped the cardboard fairies on some leaves, and Elsie snapped a picture of Frances with them. In the dark room later, an image slowly appeared. There was Frances, gazing off camera, as tiny winged figures danced in the foreground. The prank was a success. Sort of. Elsie's dad, an experienced photographer, took one look and dismissed them as fakes. But Elsie's mother, Polly? She was a different story. She believed, and her belief was the spark that would turn this little family joke into a wildfire. For 2 years, the photos were just a local curiosity. But Polly Wright was a member of the Theosophical Society, a group that studied spiritualism and the occult. In 1919, she went to a lecture on fairy life and mentioned her daughter's photos. That casual comment was all it took. Word eventually reached Edward Gardner, a major figure in the Theosophical Society. Gardner was intrigued but cautious. He'd seen plenty of faked spirit photos before. He asked for the original glass plate negatives. He and a photography expert, Harold Snelling, examined them and came to a shocking conclusion. They were completely genuine, with no signs of manipulation. What they didn't realize was that the girls' method was just too simple for the era's detection techniques. There was no sophisticated darkroom trickery, just paper figures propped up with pins. Now, totally convinced, Gardner needed someone famous, someone the world would listen to champion the discovery. He found the perfect person in Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Today, we remember Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for creating Sherlock Holmes, the ultimate rational mind. But in 1920, Conan Doyle was a man deep in grief, having lost his son, brother, and 2 nephews to the war. He had become a passionate spiritualist, desperate for proof of a world beyond our own. Today, we remember Sir Arthur Conan Doyle for creating Sherlock Holmes, the ultimate rational mind. But in 1920, Conan Doyle was a man deep in grief, having lost his son, brother, and 2 nephews to the war. He had become a passionate spiritualist, desperate for proof of a world beyond our own. When Gardner showed him the fairy photos, Conan Doyle saw exactly what he wanted to see: epoch-making proof. To him, These were photographs, a technology he trusted, capturing supernatural beings. And they were taken by two simple country girls who, he assumed, lacked the skill to pull off such an amazing hoax. Conan Doyle was about to go on a lecture tour in Australia and wanted to publicize the findings. He commissioned an article for the Strand magazine and sent Gardner back to Cottingley in the summer of 1920 with two brand new cameras and a mission: get more photos. Elsie and Francis were now in an impossible spot. Their little prank had spiraled into something huge. Pressured by these serious, important men, they felt they had no choice but to play along. They went back to the stream and produced 3 more photos. In December 1920, the Strand magazine hit the shelves with Conan Doyle's article, Fairies Photographed, an epoch-making event. It sold out in days. The Cottingley Fairies were a global phenomenon. The world was split between believers and skeptics. Conan Doyle doubled down, publishing a book in 1922 called The Coming of the Fairies, where he described fairy society, their clothes, and even their wings, all based on these 5 pictures. He brushed off critics, including a skeptical Kodak, which admitted it couldn't find evidence of fakery but refused to say the photos were real. The creator of Sherlock Holmes had become the world's leading promoter of a fairy tale. The girls were now trapped in a lie they could have never imagined, a lie that would follow them for the rest of their lives. It's wild how a small action can snowball into something so massive. What do you think you would have done in their shoes? Let me know in the comments. And if you're fascinated by stories like this, make sure to subscribe for more journeys into historical mysteries. For decades, the mystery lingered. The girls grew up, married, and moved on. But the story never went away. Reporters would track them down, and they'd give vague, clever answers, never quite admitting or denying anything. They were terrified of the humiliation they'd face for fooling so many important people, especially Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. As Elsie later said, 2 village kids and a brilliant man like him, well, we could only keep quiet. But by the early 1980s, the lie was starting to fray at the edges. A researcher named Geoffrey Crawley, who edited the British Journal of Photography, did a deep dive. He compared the fairy photos to the original drawings in Princess Mary's gift book and proved they were simply traced copies. With the evidence piling up, the cousins, now elderly women, finally came clean. In a 1983 magazine article, they confessed everything: the cardboard cutouts, the hatpins, and the fact that it all started as a joke. Elsie expressed her relief at finally being free of the secret she'd held for over 60 years. Francis simply couldn't believe it had worked, saying, "I can't understand to this day why people were taken in they wanted to be taken in." Elsie summed it up perfectly. The joke was to last 2 hours, and it has lasted 70 years. But even in their confession, they left one little piece of magic behind. While they admitted the first 4 photos were fakes, Frances insisted until her death in 1986 that the 5th and final photo, the fairies and their sunbath, was 100% genuine. She claimed that on that day, she really did see fairies, and the photo captured something truly real. So, how did 2 girls fool the world? It was the perfect storm. You had the girls' simple, clever trick, a society drowning in grief and desperate for hope, and a new technology, photography, that people still viewed as a source of undeniable truth. And, of course, you had the endorsement of one of the most famous writers on the planet. The story of the Cottingley Fairies is more than just a charming hoax. It's a powerful lesson about belief, suggestion, and our incredible ability to see what we want to see. In our modern world of digital manipulation and so-called fake news, the story of 2 girls, a camera, and some paper cutouts feels more relevant than ever. It reminds us that even the most brilliant minds can be led astray by the very human desire to believe in a little magic at the bottom of the garden. Today, the original cameras and photos sit in the National Science and Media Museum in Bradford, artifacts of a joke that accidentally became a legend.